Good morning, YouTube. This is He Knows His Sport, bringing you that heat and that fire. I might seem a little sleepy today. I didn't really get much sleep last night because I was too busy watching the NBA playoffs. And the reality is this: the Golden State Warriors and the LA Clippers. I want to talk about that game first and foremost. That was a thrilling basketball game. That game had a lot of excitement. That game was a very impactful game. But the referees, they blew the whistle on two last calls. Usually before these videos, I usually have my paperwork together. I normally, just scrub off of the material. Sometimes you might see my head go down a little bit. That's me scrubbing off of my paperwork. But today, you're getting it fresh off of the dome. As a matter of fact, you can call me another Jay-Z if you want, because I'm giving you straight from the head. But the reality is, the Golden State Warriors, they played a pretty good game. This was the first time that we were able to see somewhat of the Splash Brothers. We didn't see the fullness thereof from the Splash Brothers, but we saw somewhat of it. I like some of the things that Stephen Curry did in the game. I like some of the things that Klay Thompson did in the game. Although it took a long time for them to finally show up, the reality is Andrew Bogut is truly missed in this series, because with his physical size, with his girth and his mass, he would have been able to give Blake Griffin and the DeAndre Jordans of the world's problems down low. He would have been able to have enough size to counteract some of the things that they're able to do freely offensively. So that right there is a lingering issue that puts Golden State at a handicap. But the reality is, the referees blew two whistles. Especially that last call. I was utterly disgusted with that. I mean, Stephen Curry should have been going to the free throw line, hitting 3 shots for Golden State to win that game by 1 point. And then the referee swallowed their whistle in the shot that Stephen Curry made before that. That was a clutch shot. There was clearly contact on that. He should have been sent to the free throw line to shoot for a 4-point play. But in basketball, you got these type of things going on. It's the stuff that I keep telling everybody. The Clippers are the more favorite team. So in actuality, the referees are going to favorite, their way of playing more so than the Los Angeles Clippers. And that's what happened. Being the fact that the Clippers are the team that, the NBA finds more sexier, Chris Paul's being, so highly coveted and so highly touted as, the best point guard since Isaiah Thomas, he caught breaks. Because clearly he fouled Stephen Curry, like I said, in them last 2 calls. I didn't like it. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of fans in the Bay Area, and there's a lot of Golden State fans that are just as angered about those last 2 calls that I was. It's the stuff that I keep telling everybody. The league is so rigged up. Come on, man. Allow this to be a level playing field. What are they doing here? Those are clear-cut fouls. When you see a guy extends and then another guy gets into him and closes out his airspace, nothing wrong with closing out the airspace, but when you see obvious contact like that, you have to call those calls. Golden State clearly won that game, but obviously the referees dictated who should have won that game, when in actuality that was a game that Golden State should have won by maybe 1 or 2 points. Now let's get to the next game. The Atlanta Hawks and the Indiana Pacers. I thought the Atlanta Hawks controlled the pace of that game throughout most of the stretch. They did their things. No one can take anything away from the Hawks. Jeff Teague made this nearly impossible shot, and then Jeff Teague, had some plays down the stretch that helped the Hawks and put them in a situation where they were able to get over the top. But the reality is, here's another game where Jeff Teague clearly had his foot out of bounds, but once again, the referee swallowed their whistle. That ball should have went to Indiana. Not to say that play would have made too much of a difference, but come on. You referees in the NBA have instant replay. Use it to your advantage. What is it? You guys too old? You guys need your AARP cards or something? You guys are blind? You guys can't see anything? I don't know what's going on here. This is ridiculous. If that's the case, get some young, fresh referees in there that got 20/20 vision that can see what's going on, because it seems like even when they do instant replay, These guys need to look at the thing like 7 or 8 times, when in actuality you don't need to look at it that many times. The reality was the man's foot was out of bounds. Like I said, it wouldn't make too much of a difference because Atlanta clearly was winning, but who knows, that pivotal call, because the game was close. There was a time when that call was made that Indiana possibly could have cut the game to 4 points. And who knows what could have happened. Who knows what momentum could have swung over to the Pacers' way. So I'm not going to sit here and just debunk that call like it's nothing. But the reality is, the Pacers, they need to get their acts together. Atlanta controlled that game for the most part. Jeff Teague had a great night. Paul George didn't play the defense that he played against him in game 2. He was slagging off him. He was playing a lot of lazy defense. If he would have played defense with the sense of urgency that he did in game 2, I think he would have thereby neutralized Jeff Teague. But Jeff Teague was masterful in using the screens and getting away from Paul George and creating things. When you have an athletic point guard that has that kind of ability and that's astute enough to understand that you have to use your screens and you have to use, your advantage, which is your speed and your quickness, hats off to him for doing that. Now, he wasn't the only one that made an nearly impossible shot, but his shot was, a very lucky shot. That was not skilled. And I'm glad, it's good to see when NBA players could come out at the end of the game and say that, hey, that was a lucky shot. I don't know how I made that shot. A lot of times these players have so much ego, they don't want to admit these type of things. So like I said, hats off to Jeff Teague for doing that. But the reality is the Atlanta Hawks, like Floyd Mayweather said about the Adrian Broner and Marcos Maidana fight, when Floyd Mayweather was quoted saying that Marcos Maidana out-hustled Adrian Broner. This is what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks and the Pacers. The Atlanta Hawks are out-hustling the Pacers. And hustling is supposed to be the Pacers' game. This is where they're supposed to thrive, because the Pacers, they live on a mindset of putting you on lock and key. So the reality is they're not doing the lock and key. The reality is the Pacers are the ones getting put on lock and key. That Atlanta Hawks are doing great things. I have to give them all the credit in the world. They're playing out of the gym. I've said this before in previous videos. Sometimes the NBA does allow a level playing field every decade or so. Who knows? A lot of the teams that are winning, a lot of the teams that are up in the first round are teams that nobody expect to win the series. So, especially a team like the Atlanta Hawks, nobody had gave them a chance to beat the Pacers, even with the Pacers at a weakened state. But the reality is, we've never seen this mental breakdown from a team before. I don't know what's going on with Roy Hibbert, but man, this guy went from a 22-10 guy last year against the defending champions. Let me say that again. The most overrated defending champions, the golden boy of the NBA, the Miami Heat, the darlings of the NBA, averaging 22-10 on a team that's so overrated like that. To now, this guy's not even showing up. The last few games, he only had 8 points, and his field goal percentage was suspect. I don't know what's going on with this guy. When you 7'2" and you got a 290 frame, use it. You sitting there getting abused. It's like, what are you getting paid for? Yes, we know you can't guard Paul Millsap, but at the end of the day, tell Paul Millsap, okay, these are one of these type of situations where I can't guard you, but you can't guard me as well. Because see, if he does that, then he puts stress on Paul Millsap's defensive capabilities to the point where Paul Millsap's not going to be effective on the offensive end. He's not going to be able to be a prolific scorer, because the reality is he's the leading scorer on the Atlanta Hawks. He's averaging 22 points per game, and Jeff Teague is right behind him, averaging 21 points per game. And the reality is, you're not neutralizing this guy. You were nearly a DPOY candidate in the first half of the NBA regular season. But clearly in the second half of the regular season, you haven't been playing like it, and it's been lingering over into the playoffs. I have a problem with this. I don't understand how you let your confidence get shot. And at a time like this, and this is what I was trying to tell everybody, the playoffs separates the character from boys to men. You know, I mean, this is what the reality of the NBA playoffs is. And right now, we're seeing Roy Hibbert freeze up. He's having a LaFrozen moment. You know, he's having a overrated moment. That's what the moment that I'm seeing him have right now. When in actuality, Indiana's supposed to be a better team this year than they were last year. But they're regressing. And we're seeing it right before our eyes. This is damnable. This is not something that's good. You know, I don't see, if this team is getting so much trouble in the first round against the Hawks, I don't see how they're going to make it into the later rounds, if you ask me. I don't see how far they're going to be able to transition and get themselves to go to, because the reality is this team's weakened state is so mentally crippled right now. And Frank Vogel, you know, he contrary to what they're saying, with Larry Bird coming out saying, oh, you know, Frank Vogel's job is not threatened. The reality is this man is fighting for his job. The reports coming out on that, I believe they're accurate. Because, you know, one thing about the media, even though the media, you know, they kind of do weird stuff, like getting on this LeBron James story and talking about how he's the greatest basketball player. I can't stand when they do, you know, status quo nonsense like that. But when it comes to getting dirt, when it comes to getting inside information, they're pretty good at that stuff. And I don't think that information was coming from anywhere. I don't think that was coming from deaf ears. I think that information was coming from some kind of whistleblower or some kind of inside track person that knew what was going on, that knew all the nuances that was going on behind closed doors with the Indiana Pacers that they don't want to tell you about, they don't want to talk about, that put that information out there. Hence, the media was also the same folks that were able to get that information about the scuffle that went on between Lance Stephenson and Evans Turner. So there has to be some validity to what's being said about Frank Vogel. And you can see it in his demeanor. I mean, he's coaching now with more veracity. He's coaching like he's Bane out there in Batman. You know, he's trying to coach this team, you know, at the highest level. Some of the things that he probably should have done in the second half of the regular season. Maybe if his job was threatened then, maybe, you know, the Pacers wouldn't be in the position that they are now. But the reality is this team has been in such a weakened mindset that every series is going to be tough. I still believe the Indiana Pacers are going to win this series. I had them winning this series in 6, and I'm going to stick to my predictions. I'm not going to linger away from that. You know, just like before, in the series before, the Golden State Warriors and LA Clippers, I had Golden State winning that series in 7. And I'm still sticking to that prediction, because at the end of the day, the series are not over. Yeah, I may be wrong. I may have been wrong last night about the 3 teams that I picked to win, which were the Golden State Warriors, the Indiana Pacers, and the OKC Thunder. But the reality is, the series is far from over. These teams still have a chance to win the series. And if these referees gird up their loins and these referees make these plays the way that they're supposed to, and stop acting like they're so blind that, you know, that they might need somebody like Ray Charles to even assist them, then these referees need to go ahead and do their thing and you know, ref the game the correct way. But like I said, NBA is such a rigged league that these referees are only going to do what's asked of them from above. And right now, their boss is Adam Silver, so whatever he says goes. Now let's get to the next game. The third game was interesting. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Memphis Grizzlies. I did not see this coming. I had Oklahoma City Thunder up in the series 2-1. You know, I can admit when I'm wrong. I can admit that my prediction was wrong about this. But Kevin Durant, I mean, he looks like Tony Allen has taken him out of the game. He looks like he is mentally and psychologically warped. He looks like, you know, he is not himself. He looks like, you know, he needs a confidence booster. Last night, Russell Westbrook showed more heart than him. Granted, Russell Westbrook kind of baited into Courtney Lee's mental strategy that he was using in trying to get him to take most of the shots. He baited into that. And the reality is, no matter how much heart Russell Westbrook showed, the Oklahoma City Thunder, when he's the one deciding the game and he's the one that's getting, you know, the most touches and he's the one that's determining the pace of the game, they don't win. But I give Russell Westbrook all the credit in the world. He showed a lot of heart. He did big things out there. You know, I mean, he took some of the plays, some of the impactful plays that you would expect a Kevin Durant to take. And hence, As much as Kevin Durant is my boy, I have to give criticism where criticism is due. I hate to have to do this to you, Kevin Durant, but when it's time for me to be harsh, no one is more harsh in the business than me. I'm going to have to assassinate your character. You need to show me that you can step up to the plate. Because the reality is that laissez-faire attitude that you have, that nonchalant attitude that you have all these 7 years talking about, oh, you don't care what people think. No, you need to start caring what people think. Even LaFrozen, even overrated, which he still is, at some point had to go back and recheck himself. When you had the Skip Baylesses of the world, that's when Skip Bayless used to be on point. I don't know what Rudy Poo analyst he is now. But the reality is when he used to be on point, and his criticism used to be levied harsh against the LeBron James of the world. You know, LeBron had to go do a gut check. He still has not fully changed. There's still overrated tendencies in him, but his mindset, you know, and I don't give this guy too much credit, but I'm going to give him a little bit of credit. And when I talk about a little bit of credit, this is 0.01% of credit, because this is what he deserves in his basketball game. His mental has gotten a little better. He is mentally stronger. When you have a psychologist like a Dwayne Wade, that helps you, your game leaps and bounds. The reality is he's gotten mentally tougher, because things that used to faze him when he was so mentally weak don't faze him anymore. I'm not saying you need to take the same route like a overrated. I'm not saying you need to take the same route like LaFrozen. But what you need to do is you need to talk to the Michael Jordans of the world. You need to talk to the Kobe Bryants of the world. And if you want, you can watch yours truly video, because I can be your coach and I can teach you how some of the things that you need to do on the basketball court. When you play a defender like Tony Allen is not a hard guy to figure out. Yes, he is a pit bull defender. Yes, he does pit bull things. Yes, he has pit bull tendencies about him. And hats off to him taking you psychologically out of this series. But the reality is when you play a defender that plays all of that snub-nosed, peanut butter jelly type defense on you, what you got to do is you got to make the referees call the call. You got to play this guy with aggression. You can't be taking these Rudy Poo jump shots on a defender like that. You're basically putty into their game. You have to draw the contact. First of all, you got the size. Post game can be taught. A refined post game cannot be taught. That's something completely different. I would have to explain that in another video game, because when I'm on the court and I'm playing street ball, I have one of the most refined post games. And boy, anybody that knows I'll be putting people to school when I'm on the court. That's why I say you need to watch my video so I can teach you a thing or two about what it takes to get to that refined post game level. But in terms of post game, you got the size. All you got to do is ask for the ball down low, back this guy down. You're nearly 7 feet. This guy's 6'4". You've gotten stronger over the years. Just back him down. You did it on one play. I saw that one play that you did in the fourth quarter where you put him in the post and you made the layup. Why did you not go to that more often? When you play against a defender like that, you have to attack them. You have to bring it to them. You can't let a defender like that get comfortable in their defensive stance. You have to constantly be moving. You have to use that 100-mile-per-hour pace against a defender like that, because once a defender like that cannot set their feet, the reality is you're going to have them dancing and you're going to put them in uncompromising situations where the referee is going to dictate who's going to get the advantage of the call. And in actuality, the advantage of the call is going to go towards you. What you lack in strength, you have that in speed. When a guy like that is playing you, every time you have to play with a sense of urgency. You have to play with aggression. Hence, you see Kobe Bryant does that when he plays against Tony Allen. That's why he's able to put that boy in foul trouble and send him to the bench. This is how you got to play the game of basketball when you're playing against Tony Allen. You have to play with an aggression. You can't be taking these wild jumpers that you were doing in the fourth quarter and the overtime. I'm like, what is wrong with you? If your jumper is not going, if your shot is not there, take it to the basket. That's basketball 101. Put your head down and go to the basket. You are the number 2 guy in the NBA after LeBron James. You are the golden boy in line. The NBA obviously makes it clear that it is not your time yet. It is LeBron James' time, because the Miami Heat get nearly 30 calls per game. Yes, I said it. They get nearly 30 foul calls per game. And I believe when they play against the Charlotte Bobcats in Game 4, I think they're going to hit a record 35 foul calls. But getting back to the whole defensive thing with Tony Allen You know, and Kevin Durant, you are KD Trade 5. You are the Slim Reaper. You are the most prolific scorer in the game. Everything doesn't have to be primed around you taking jumpers. Everything doesn't have to be primed around you taking errant jump shots. You feed into the psychological advantage of a defender like that. You need to play him more aggressive. You need to get your body into him. You need to draw the contact. And I'm not talking about that weak stuff that you be doing where you try to get those fouls. The referee's not going to call that because right now, since you're losing in this series, Tony Allen's going to get the benefit of the doubt. I'm talking about actually throwing your body into him. This is basketball 0-0-1. Hence, if you want to know these lessons, look at my video so I'm teaching you the thing right now. And I'm doing this for free. I'm not even charging you. I don't know why Scott Brooks not telling you things like this. This is ludicrous. This is absurd. When you got all that size, you got to put him back. You got to back him down. And you got to make those layups on him. That's how you're going to draw the contact. Because a defender like that loves when you front them. They love when you're trying to dribble in front of their faces. Because they have enough defensive high IQ and awareness to deflect the ball and to put you in uncomfortable airspace. And you have to understand that. That's why you have to turn your back and force them to have to use their hands to try to turn you. Because the referees are going to clearly see that they're fouling you. It's just like when I'm on the streets playing basketball and I'm playing against my little brother. He's a miniature mini-me. And every time I keep putting him to the post, he keeps calling these crazy little girl wussy calls. Oh, you fouled me, man. Oh, you know, you just putting your elbow. You trying to play like LBJ. I don't be pushing off. It's just I use my size to my advantage. I use my girth and my mass to my advantage. And I back them down, put them in the post, and make the shot easy for me. This is what you got to do, man. It's simple. I don't understand why you're not doing these things. You know? And you're supposed to be the guy that's going to be the golden boy of the NBA. Please don't allow yourself to get the help that LeBron James got. And it's looking like that. It's leaning towards that because one thing in your game, I'm not going to lie, Charles Barkley was right. The one hole in your game is you don't have a post game. And it's evident. And Tony Allen is such a smart defender to realize that. But one thing you do have is a ability to drive to the basket with a velocity that I haven't seen from a 7-footer. You need to use that. Use that to your advantage. This is how you're going to get this guy in foul trouble. It's like the old saying, it's nothing like going to the basket. That's the highest percentage shot. And if you don't make it, the referees have no choice but to take you to the foul line because at the end of the day, you are the second most marketable player. You have the second most selling jerseys, the second most highest number of shoes. So use your marketability to your advantage. Use your superstar card to your advantage. Because the referees are not going to call calls when you're taking up these weak jumpers and thinking that, you know, you're just going to get called because you're Kevin Durant. That's not going to happen. And you need to start calling out Russell Westbrook. You know, where's that fire in you? Where's that gut check? Where's that mental, you know, veracity for you to sit there and say, yo, this is my team. I'm going to take this team over. This is the time for you to do this. You're part of that 7-year rule. You're actually living in the 7-year rule because this is your 7th year. After this, you're going to start getting vilified. You're going to start getting criticized as a guy who basically is a very talented scorer, but he can't do nothing else. You slowly but surely going into that Carmelo Anthony lane. You're slowly but surely going into that Dwight Howard lane. Be very careful, Kevin Durant, because you might be labeled a bust soon. And there's little tweaks that you can make to get yourself out of that lane. So I don't understand why you're not doing this. Stop acting like you got all the answers. Stop acting prideful. The playoffs is all about humbling yourself and learning from your mistakes. This is He Knows His Sport, checking out.